Podcasserole. Welcome in.
You are listening to an Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast, a proud member of the Podcasserole Network. Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Peter. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right.
Good.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about our guest today, Terrie Morgan. And she was probably the most real leader. I think about last week, you talked about Richard Ramos, and what you appreciated about his imperfect leader definition was the fact that you have to be a real leader, if I remember correctly, something like that.
And realistic.
And so a realistic. I mean, you couldn't get more, what I thought, real than Terrie Morgan.
No shade on any of the guests.
No, I understand.
I think they're all great. I heard the first words out of Terrie Morgan's mouth. This is the first words she said. This is a 36-year career serving in Hardin County Schools in Kentucky. 36 years in one district. And now superintendent for since 2016. She says, you said, welcome to an imperfect leader. And she goes, it sounds like the perfect show for me. I'm like, as soon as those words came out of her mouth, all of my chips got pushed to the center of the table. I'm like, oh, I'm all in.
Oh, I'm all in.
I'm all, yeah, all in. Because you got me. I'm with you, Terrie. What do you want to do? Where should I go?
So funny.
I truly loved her humility and clarity and so wonderful. And so I feel like there's a few of these where I'm like, listeners, you're in for a treat. She's amazing. She's truly amazing.
I mean, do you want to get right into it, or is there anything you want people to listen to?
No. Like everything, like every segment has a nugget. Everything. And there's so many things that I'm a little bit nervous about our conversation in the backhand here.
Okay. All right. So then let's get right into it. You're listening to an Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I am Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm Jamie Monson.
Today on an Imperfect Leader, we're joined by Terrie Morgan. Terrie has dedicated her entire 36-year career serving the Hardin County Schools in Hardin County, Kentucky, and has served as the district superintendent since 2016. In 2024, Terrie was named the Kentucky Superintendent of the Year. Terrie, welcome to an Imperfect Leader.
It sounds like the perfect show for me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
That's funny. Listen, I continue to be in debt to Dee Dee Ashby for connecting me to outstanding Kentucky leaders. I think we can agree that she's one really well-connected person. And what I really appreciate about her is that she's always suggesting human-centered leaders who really prioritize the needs of children. And that's really where I want to begin with you, because as I have enjoyed reading and learning about you, and let me give you an example, your passion of ensuring that all Hardin County Schools decisions ought to be and should be student-centered. Let's start there, if that's okay. What does a student-centered approach look like in practical decision-making for a superintendent? Especially in a large district like Hardin County, you're balancing diverse needs and priorities. And so what does it look like?
It is the most defendable approach you can take. As long as you can always back it to why that decision was best for students, it's easily defendable. And that's how I look at it. I'm going to make your job easy as a teacher, because if you're making all of these decisions as a principal, if you're making decisions that are student-centered, you can defend it to the nth degree. And people, while they may not agree, they will see your passion and your importance of being a student-centered district.
Does one come to mind for you as you were describing that, which absolutely, I love the definition. It's the most defensible decision one can make as a leader. Putting kids first, absolutely. I'm trying to think through things like inter-district transfers, or because sometimes we make a decision for a child to attend a different school and you get criticized, why not me, and you let them. And you essentially, in your response here, is because kids. This child is going to be better situated in terms of the services they need. But you know what? I'm always going to make a kid-first decision. So I was just trying to think through some that maybe come to mind as you sometimes get pressure from the public to defend a decision.
So one that I can think of immediately is we have a program which is called Low Incidence in the state of Kentucky. And that's for students who have potentially a lot of health needs, but they also have some developmental milestones that they haven't covered. Many students, possibly with significant cerebral palsy, would possibly fit into these classrooms. They have a lot of academic struggles, generally have an IQ 55 or less. So I made the decision that if a sibling needs to go to a low incident unit, that their siblings can also attend that school. In one situation, a principal had told many family members that they could not attend their school out of district. And yet I overrode that decision by saying, no, but these siblings will be able to attend.
What a great example.
And the issue was other parents were going to know that they accepted other students out of district after they had been told no. But when I looked at the students, I could not tell a family that they had to take a twin sibling to a different school and put families on two different.
Right. It's already an excruciating decision for a family to know that their child is better served outside of their home school. And
Absolutely.
then to say, oh, and your sibling is not allowed to accompany you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so to me, and I did have a couple of parents to call and say, if you did that for them, you can do it for us. And I'm like, no, but it was easily defendable. I said, it's one schedule. I would never ask you to do something different. So
that's interesting.
Then,
I can imagine some parents, if they, from my previous district, are like, oh, really? Because you didn't let me. Be like, there's a reason for that. And we'll get into that some other time.
Yeah. I think the other thing that comes to mind that superintendents or principals wrestle with is like the school day planning periods. What is looked at? What pathways do we have for our students? So there are just a multitude of examples of where.
Oh, yeah. So two came to mind for me as you were just describing. One, as you were describing changing a child's school, the McKinney-Vento Act, and sometimes a neighboring district will say, oh, no, that child can't come here. And you say they're federally protected as a homeless child, and let's figure out how to do the busing. And if it even means that I have to pick up the rest of the busing costs, I'm going to do it because it's what's best for the child, either to bus back to us or for the child to bus to you, because what we're trying to provide is consistency for a child who's already experienced such a trauma of being unhoused.
And our legislators have done this. If a individual has to go into a safe house because they were attacked violently or they're not safe in their own home, we continue to provide transportation for the children in those situations. And that housing center for those is not in our district. But yet the last thing we need to do is uproot a child from their school, their home school, when they've already been uprooted from their home.
Absolutely. And you think about the developmental stage of any child in our K or pre-K-12 system, the unintentional sort of their takeaway is, oh, I'm not valued, or what did I do wrong kind of thing. So what we're saying is you're so valued. We're going to put this as a child first decision to make sure that you're back. Oh, I love it. Our guest today is Terrie Morgan, Superintendent of the Hardin County Schools in Hardin County, Kentucky. And Terrie, in the leadership model that I use to advise others, there's a dimension, nested patterns. And it's almost like those Russian dolls, but it really is the muscle of what we do as leaders. It says, how do we want to be together? And inside that dimension is one of those dolls, which is high levels of collaboration. And during an I Lead session that I was able to watch, I really did do a deep dive. Tell me about Terrie Morgan in Kentucky. You discussed recognizing and working on weaknesses, not as true flaws, but as areas needing awareness and growth, and often by learning from others. And so how do you encourage that culture? And I know you have an affiliation with Dee Dee, which tells me that you have an affiliation with Studer, which tells me that culture is a big part of the work that they do. Systems, absolutely, but starting with that culture. And so how do you encourage a culture within your staff and among students where individuals, including yourself, really can identify and address these areas for continuous improvement?
I think as a leader, you have to show that you're always learning and willing to do that. And there's a difference between stupidity and ignorance. And when you are ignorant of a concept, you just have to go and educate yourself about it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with continuing your education. The issue comes if you know it's a problem and you don't seek out that training or the assistance that you need. So that is what I always say. I always use myself and the mistakes that I've made and tell them, you probably can't screw this up as bad as I did. So let's learn from this. We encourage students to do that all the time. So we as adults certainly need to lead with that example of, I'm continuing to learn. I mentioned earlier, I don't have a doctorate. I don't want to prove my learning by writing papers and things like that, but I want to continue to improve my craft. And that's what we ask the directors in our district to do. That's what we ask our principals to do and our teachers to do. And we ask them to identify those goals and what actions they would need to take to meet those goals. And that's a lifelong lesson for all of us.
I love this ignorance versus stupid. I always say it's imperfect versus incompetent. It's okay to be imperfect and be vulnerable and to say, I've made a mistake and this is what I'm learning from it. And so in the future, I will make more predictably successful decisions as opposed to the Keystone Cops of incompetence. So I'm now going to add into my vernacular ignorance versus stupid. That's really good. That's really good.
Ignorance does not offend me or bother me at all. Stupidity, on the other hand, just bothers me. You know better and you're still not doing better.
Yes. I often refer to that as benign ignorance because I didn't intentionally work to hurt you. I made a mistake, or as opposed to aggravated ignorance of I'm ruled by some exterior or external bias that I've already brought to this situation. And I'm not interested in learning. I'm not interested in growing and developing or applying. Another of the nested patterns is a growth mindset. You can be ignorant, say, I know I don't know, but yet I'm interested in getting better and growing.
And Mike Rutherford has 4 squares, and one of the things he says is consciously incompetent, meaning I am conscious that I am not competent to do this, but I am certainly willing to learn. It's the consciously incompetent is where you can learn, but sometimes we fall into unconscious incompetence. And again, that falls back on the ignorance.
Yeah. I really want to, if I can, think about some of the work around continuous improvement, and particularly the start of the year has happened. So you've done all your planning over the summer and you've launched the year, and now we're getting towards almost the second half of the year. And I'm curious, how do you lead that work as you've now entered another year serving your district, 36th year in the district, and then since 2016 as superintendent? How do you keep that fresh, and how do you continue to, because I imagine continuous improvement as a regular learner is that's important to you. So I'm just curious, how do you go about doing that work?
As you mentioned earlier, our good friend, Dr. Ashby, we work with a company called Studer, and we create a scorecard. And it's different than a strategic plan because we have a strategic plan. We generally don't visit our strategic plan.
I can't tell you how happy I am to hear you say that. I bristle at the idea of a strategic plan because you want an iterative process because we're schools. We're institutions of learning. And so we're constantly learning and maybe adapting and adjusting. Awesome. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, but we create 45-day plans of what actions can you take in the next 45 days to meet these goals. And then we go through a red process and we go, okay, is it green? We did it successfully and it had the outcome we anticipated. Or is it yellow? We're in the process of it. We're not sure that it's giving us the fruit for our labors yet. It may go to green with some more action. And then you can rate it red, which means you really followed none of the steps to make that goal an actuality for you. The issue is we have to look at if it's still red and it was part of our 45-day action, why did we put it on there? Do we need to change our actions? Was it a bad goal? Or do we just need a kick in the pants to say, no, we had the right goal, we had the right actions. We just need to make it a priority now. So doing that every 45 days. So after we do those 45 days, then we plan for the next 45 days. So if it was yellow or red, then we would actually continue with the next steps or change those actions to get to the goal that we set. And sometimes, and you as an educator know, sometimes students can throw you for a twist and you can say, I was not anticipating those issues because we've never had that group of students with that group of needs. So sometimes we just have to stop and change based on the situation that's at hand. As the superintendent, we have a lot of new employees every year. And when we do that, we have to develop a plan. We in the state of Kentucky now have what we call Option 6, which means people can come from a professional career and become a teacher in education. Those folks need more time learning the craft of planning lessons and presenting those lessons to students. They know the content. We don't need to work on them.
And building meaningful relationships with children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I noticed. In Missouri, we had something called the Visiting Scholar Program, which allowed for a short period of time. And the incentive was, okay, now go get a teaching degree. And so for 3 years, you could do it. And you can imagine, that's great. You know your content. Do you know children? Do you know? And the whole taking things personally, because a kid is they're going to tell you things that you may not want to hear.
Yes. Through our Option 6 program, we had a gentleman who worked for a church, and he did work for us for about 10 to 12 weeks. And I say this comically, he said, I'm going to go back to the church full time because I find that it is easier to deal with sinners because of my lack of preparedness for what I was.
Are you sure he didn't say, I'm going to go back to church and pray? I do like his line better, but I wanted to fill in yours where it's like, you know what? I think I'm just going to go back and pray for everybody because my word.
He did tell me he did that on a daily basis, but he worried more about his impact. So
that's so funny.
Honesty, and he still mentors children, just not on a daily
He found
basis.
the place that made sense for him. That's good.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you a question that I ask every guest who comes on the podcast. How does the term an imperfect leader resonate for you?
It resonates with me on a daily basis. I go home every night and truly reflect on what happened that day. And I'm thinking, I wish I had done this differently. I wished I had taken more time. I wish I had taken steps to get more buy-in. And so I think that imperfect leader is just the reality of what is being asked us on a daily basis when we don't control all the pieces all the time. And you just have to turn and make adjustments. You really become an imperfect person when you don't make changes as a result of realizing you're an imperfect leader.
And we'll be right back. Hey, district leaders, I know you already know this. In schools worldwide, cell phones are posing real challenges on student engagement and mental well-being, and I want you to meet Yonder, a proud sponsor of An Imperfect Leader. And let me share this story from a visit I made to some schools in Silicon Valley. I asked some kids what they liked about Yonder, and after some funny looks, they shared that actually, with Yonder, teachers don't have to battle with them over phones anymore. In fact, one kid said to me he didn't have to worry anymore about his parents texting him in class, and the kid next to him sort of shoved him and goes, "Texting? My mom used to FaceTime me in class." I want to introduce you to a support system that increases teaching and learning. I want you to discover why 1 million students choose Yonder daily. Minimize distractions, maximize learning potential. To learn more, go to overyonder.com. YONDR. So I want to talk a minute about the Mosaic Project. It is one of our favorite organizations and has over 25 years of experience empowering students to really celebrate differences, communicate assertively, and resolve conflict peacefully at their outdoor school. I happen to have experience being part of the Mosaic Project, and so I can absolutely tell you it's an amazing organization. Their innovative SEL curriculum is now available to our Imperfect Leader audience. And so you can get a 10% discount through their new documentary film-based Mosaic Classroom Project. So just let the people know during your onboarding process to receive that 10% discount is to just mention An Imperfect Leader. Learn more about the Mosaic Project at mosaicproject.org.
This is Greg Meyer, Jamie's partner at APC Leadership Collaborative. Superintendents know that school principals are the single biggest lever that any school district has for improving student joy and success. Unfortunately, there's very little professional development for the specific things that a principal has to do to improve their school. At APC Leadership Collaborative, we specialize in coaching principals to take on audacious goals, build their leadership skills, and make big improvements in their school. If that inspires you, let's connect and talk about how we can collaborate. Find APC Leadership Collaborative online at apccolab.com.
When leaders think in systems, they think differently. They see the big picture, making decisions that create coherence and strengthen communication across their teams. They build adaptability, flexibility, and engagement. Every day, school leaders face complex challenges, from student engagement to staff alignment. What if your team could see those challenges as part of a bigger picture? That's what happens when you think in systems. It's how leaders turn complexity into connection and challenges into opportunities for growth. At the Waters Center for Systems Thinking, we help educators and organizations build this capacity, developing the habits and tools that turn vision into action. Think differently, think in systems. Sign up for our webinars, free resources, or a consultation by visiting our website, which you can find in the show notes.
We're back for segment 2 of An Imperfect Leader called Imperfect Leadership in After Action. My guest today is Terrie Morgan, the superintendent of the Hardin County Schools in Hardin County, Kentucky. And in this segment, we ask our guests to deconstruct a decision they made and then what they learned from it. Terrie, what happened?
So we had this great idea to create our first ever preschool through 8th grade center. Our schools here in Kentucky generally go preschool through 5th grade and then 6th through 8th. And we had declining enrollment. And so we were going to create one building, new building that was a K through 8 building or preschool through 8 building. The issue was the elementary school had been promised a new school and they anticipated it being preschool through 5th. But I gave all the justification for that to our Board of Education. So the Board of Education voted to do that. And that's the big problem there. And then I went and spoke to the teachers and the assistants in the building to let them know what the new plan was that the board had passed. And we had done a lot of work working through this process with the Board of Education. Unfortunately, when we talked to the teachers, they were adamantly opposed to being in a school that had preschool through 8th graders. And they very quickly promoted an anti-group.
A narrative. Oh boy. Do you want your 5-year-old with a 13-year-old? All those kinds of things. Oh man, I could just see it.
In the restroom? What about students in the stairways? All of these issues, and just created a lot of angst in the community.
Yeah.
So then we thought we should have a community forum, and individuals got to come to the mic and state what was wrong or what questions they had. And based on the number of people there, we slotted so much time. So if we had 30 people wanting to talk, each one of them got 3 minutes. So it turned into a huge mess. So I very quickly learned that you need to start with the boots on the road, or be doing it at the same time that I was working with the board. I should have been working with the staff.
You're jumping right into the what got overlooked, which is amazing. Okay, so if I understand correctly, you had an opportunity because of declining enrollment, again, a student-centered decision, seeing that there was an opportunity to create a pre-K through 8th grade center. And previous to you, there was a promise or an expectation, let's say, that the next school was going to be a K-5 center, not pre-K 8, or pre-K 5 and not pre-K 8. And you lay this out for your board, as a superintendent would, and says, look, you ultimately make this decision as a board because you represent the community. Where do you want to go? And they said, we want to create this pre-K 8. And you said, okay. And so then you went to deliver that information to the teachers and leaders, and maybe you were expecting their opposition, but it maybe not as strongly opposed as you received it. And then this campaign against this decision went into effect. And so did I capture, is that what happened?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, wow. Sorry that you have to relive it. That is a big deal. And so I apologize for jumping into what could overlook, because I think you were getting at that for me. So what I think I started to hear you say was, in terms of engaging those impacted, like the teachers, that in terms of the timeline, you would have preferred to have done it at a different time.
Yes. But the other part, our board does take a commitment to be good stewards of taxpayer money. And we knew we were going to have to replace 2 buildings, but with declining enrollment, it made sense to be good stewards of taxpayer money to make 1 building. So after meeting with the staff, we did do the community thing. But I think had we started, yes, inform the board that we were going to have these conversations, because you certainly don't want to create animosity with the board of what are you doing out in public? They're putting pressure on us to vote this way or this way, and we don't know a lot about it. But to do it in unison would have made much more sense, to talk to the teachers first about the financial constraints of building 2 buildings at the time that we were doing this. Also sharing with them the design plans ahead of time of how you could separate students out. While you may have a common area in the media center, you wouldn't have common restrooms for your elementary students and middle schools, and really just hearing, hey, what are your concerns? And we could have addressed those one by one. And would we have been able to overcome every concern that they had? Certainly not. But we certainly could have done a better job. I could have done a better job of communication. And instead of doing that hierarchy, I should have started with those boots on the road, the ground that needed to hear the information so that they felt valued and appreciated.
I think this is so important for so many superintendents, particularly a big part of our listeners are those who are either aspiring or they're new to the superintendency, because they're trying to collect all these stories of maybe what didn't go as you had totally hoped, and then what you learned from it so that they can make good decisions. And I think this is a great one, because starting with your board to say, here's my strategy for really harvesting the collective wisdom in our district. And then I'm going to come back to you so well informed so that as you make a decision, you know exactly how we're making that decision. And potentially it takes a little bit of the confusion out of the equation, because it provides clarity for your teachers to say, I imagine you're concerned about 13-year-olds with 5-year-olds or 4-year-olds. And so, of course, we're going to work together to make sure that we're creating a shared front door that has 2 separate programs that really speak to what they need, because they have very different needs.
Peter, the way you just said that earlier, I wished I had written that down before I started this process.
We're going to get a time machine and we're going to meet.
The rear view mirror sometimes is clearer than what's coming in front of you.
Oh, that's a Dee Dee statement. I remember my conversation with her a couple of years ago where she talked about rear view mirror and what's in your front view? What is that in the car? Your windshield versus your rear view. Yeah, that's great. What did you learn about relationships?
They are incredibly valuable. I also learned that different people expect different things from you. And some people are great with a 1-minute conversation. Others need you to sit down with them one-on-one and have a deeper conversation. And you can't take how important those conversations are for granted. And it may not be for your benefit all the time, but man, the benefit of listening to them and them feeling valued and appreciated is to be, I guess, appreciated that they feel that they can have those conversations with you. So I learned a great deal about relationships. Number one, don't take any of them for granted, especially when it comes to something they're incredibly passionate about. The more passionate someone is about something, the more time you have to invest. And that's what I learned from them.
I imagine also, just superintendents who are listening, we hate to say it, but we're politicians in some way. We're the lead learner and we're the lead storyteller. And the storyteller sometimes is basically we're a politician having to maybe communicate well where we're going and what we've learned. And there are others in the community who are also highly valued for their storytelling. And so knowing who are those important connectors, particularly those with the board and other community groups, so they fully understand what we're trying to achieve, so they can then share that information with others and maybe dispute the counter narrative that has been, particularly with social media, that is spun and then spins out of control. So I wonder if you have seen that subsequent to that decision or even as part of that.
Oh, absolutely. Immediately following this, one of the parents put on social media for the people of that community to sign a petition to have me fired immediately, and came to the next board meeting to show how many signatures that they had. And this was within my first or second year as superintendent.
Oh,
So
gosh, how troubling.
our board chair
A
laughed.
buyout already?
And no, they did not want a buyout. They flat out fired. There
wow.
was no money changing hands for a buyout.
God, I'm glad you can look back and laugh, but my gosh.
I did. And I really respected our board chair when that individual came to the podium during their opportunity to speak at our board meetings. And the first thing, as a new superintendent, we want her fired. We want her fired immediately. So.
During the pandemic, a parent came to the podium and said to me, Dr. Stiepelman, if I were married to you, I would divorce you. And then she said, and you're a chicken. And then she put on a chicken head. I didn't even see where she was hiding it, but it was this massively large chicken head. And it was about the one time that I was happy to have had a mask on, because my face was just like, oh my. But luckily I'd been in the job for a little bit, so I wasn't too worried.
And look, we're both on the other side and have lived to laugh about it.
It's true. It's true. You're so right. In the end, what was something that was good that came out of this situation for you?
Number one, it taught me about sitting down and creating a process of communication of what steps we take in any decision that is going to impact our schools, our teachers, our students, their families. And so thinking of unintended consequences. I complain often about our legislators making legislation and they don't think of the unintended consequences, the time, the energy, the funds that creates at a school level. And then I was guilty of the same thing. I needed to recognize the unintended consequences. So I learned when we do a press release, who needs to know? And I'll share with you, when we do shutdowns because of an emergency situation, they're called lockdowns. If we have a threat of a weapon or something like that, our buildings and grounds people, we never let them know. So here they are in a van going and unlocking a door when everybody's on lockdown, which they are not. They don't receive a warm welcome when that happens. So now when I do a lockdown, we have all of our channels of communication. Don't forget about bus drivers. Don't forget about custodians. Don't forget about building and ground. So again, it's just that process of communication. Who all needs to go know? Who all is going to be impacted by this?
That is such wisdom. I think we will end there. Our guest today was Terrie Morgan, the superintendent of the Hardin County Schools in Hardin County, Kentucky. And first of all, your last response in terms of really making sure that you're engaging those who are impacted. And I was looking back on all of the lockdowns we've done, and I wonder, did we tell facilities who might be entering into a space and be misidentified as a perpetrator of something? And wow, that really was eye-opening for me, and so I'm sure for those listening. But more than anything, this entire conversation has just been so magical. I really am grateful for your time. And as I have been asking people, how does the term imperfect resonate for you? I'm going to start thinking about that term consciously imperfect. I'm going to steal Mike Rover's word a little bit, but because I think we're consciously imperfect about wanting to be better. And that consciousness is about being vulnerable with others that we get to serve. And so thank you for always reminding us that it's really about student-centered decision-making, and that's the most defensible decision one can make. So grateful for your time. Thanks for joining the program.
I appreciate the opportunity. This has been great as I go back, and I'm thinking I can share all kinds of other imperfect decisions that I have made. So
make sure, don't become oh boy, she sounds incompetent. No, perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, Peter, we're back. I'm excited to talk about this. There's a bunch of things that I want to mention. Can we start with, it's kind of toward the end, or I don't know, maybe 3/4 of the way through the conversation, when she was talking about working with Studer and not having a strategic plan, but a scorecard. And this really resonated with me. I wondered, A, what are your thoughts about this approach? And B, what makes this better than use a strategic plan? Why would you just not have a active strategic plan?
Yeah. So actually, the work that I led was also a scorecard. We had a scorecard, and it had 4 sections. It had the acronym of FACE, which was finances, academics, climate, and employees. And in each of those areas, we had different pieces, indicators of things that we wanted that we had prioritized that were tied to our goals. And then we would look longitudinally, how were we doing in each of those areas? We would code them red, yellow, and green. And then on the far, we had the same categories for about 10 of our comparison districts. And because I wanted to know how we were doing is important, how are the districts that were most like us doing? Because if we were doing better or the same or worse, what can we learn from them? What might we share with each other to get together and say, look, we're all kind of struggling here. What might we learn together? So I really liked that as a way to, I brought it everywhere and it was pretty clear. It did require a lot of communication. I had to break it down each time. We're family, families, finances, academics, climate, and employees, those kinds of things. We're looking at attendance and grade, blah, blah, blah. Looking back, I wish we had done some of the appreciative inquiry work and then developing that compelling purpose that sort of then would make us really clear on what we were trying to create together, so that there would be alignment between this narrative of what we're trying to achieve and then what the scorecard is measuring. And the reason why I say that is because there would be times on the scorecard where I would say our lowest achieving students happen to be our African-American students. And so I was on the scorecard saying, this is so important, I'm putting it on the scorecard. And believe it or not, I get accusations that would say, you are spotlighting children who are underachieving and blaming them, that you would be doing better if that group were doing better. I'm like, whoa, that is a really rich way of interpreting. What I'm saying is, it's so important. How could a school district this well-resourced be doing so poorly in this area? Let's do something about it. And if we had tied it back to all of this work together, then it would have said, oh, of course that's on there. Because together we had created this compelling purpose to say, this is what we want to create together. A district where every child succeeds as well. And we're going to make sure that they are front and center on our scorecard.
I think that's fascinating. It's funny. My brain cannot get past the idea of my friend Peter Siepelman, absurd baseball fan, thinking, I too am a baseball fan, but thinking the word scorecard. And then I'm like, oh, it must have had bases on it. And it must have indicated
that's right.
E high school, error high school.
Oh my God.
Error,
That's so
grade.
funny. Yeah, that's right. Fly out, line out.
Yeah.
IBB.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Yeah. Or an exclamation point, because that was quite a play.
Yeah.
That's probably why I felt so comfortable keeping a scorecard like that. I'm like, oh, of course.
Both of us, I grew up doing this. This is what I loved it. I still do. But that's what I was thinking about. I could see basically when we do strategic planning, the only thing that's original about us is the back end. It's like we basically just promote cycles of inquiry or an iteration of reflection on relation to progress toward what you said we were going to do over the next 5 years, 3 years, whatever it is the strategic plan is set up as. And it's in essence a scorecard, but it's just a cycle of inquiry where you're doing some reflections and you're marking progress toward those goals. What I liked about her that I had never really thought about, her approach. Terrie had the 45-day plan. And what are we going to accomplish in 45 days? I thought that was amazing. Totally amazing.
Yes. And I think she would say that Dee Ashby, Deanna, who is also a former Kentucky superintendent who has been working with Studer, that comes from their work, and it is brilliant. It makes again, it's just being real, being pragmatic, and recognizing a year-long strategic plan makes no sense unless you're chunking it and doing 45-day iterations and then saying, okay, what progress do we make and what can we credit for making that progress? And then what do we need to change? And let's measure it again.
I want to talk about a couple more things, if that's okay. I'm sorry
please.
If the back end of this goes a little long, but I just feel like you can't not mention these. I want to talk about the low incidence units in the state of Kentucky, where she has the school. So a kid has, in this case, she gave the example of a kid having cerebral palsy, and then having that school not only serve the kid with cerebral palsy, but also their siblings. This to me is I've not even ever heard of this. As the listeners know, our middle son goes to a school. He has high special needs. He has a genetic disorder called Phelan-McDermid, a gene deletion. And he goes to this amazing school that I love very deeply called Wellspring, started by two former special ed directors of public schools who realized that they could do a better job if they created their own school in serving students of high need. I think that's also genius, right?
Yes.
The innovation
Well, David
part,
Richards, who was on our program in micro schools. I mean, this is a perfect example.
Exactly. Imagine if they could also take our youngest, Leo, because Pablo goes there and we would send Leo to the same school. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. And the empathy that goes into that thinking, the way in which they're thinking about, to me, that's not just students first, that's families first.
Yes. Can I challenge it just a little bit? I'm curious from your perspective as a parent.
Sure.
No, what they do is marvelous. And you're right. It is so honoring of a family to say, of course, we want to keep everyone together. And of course, your child can attend with their sibling. I'm curious about the sibling and their sort of reaction to, why do I have to go to this other school? Why can't I go to the neighborhood school with my friends? Why do I have to go to that school? I don't know anyone there. Does that at all sit with you? It's like, so I'm curious about, does the sibling feel punished in some kind of way because, and I wonder sometimes if the siblings, I got to make another concession. Can't I just go to the school where all my friends go? And so
we
the flip
rarely
is,
run into this. Yeah.
why can't the school, the neighborhood school, meet both those kids' needs and have them go to the same school? And I'm telling you, I'm arguing for something that I was incapable of doing and would say to families, I'm so sorry. We don't have the specialists to be able to do it. So this is not at all a challenge of what Terrie so thoughtfully crafted for families. I'm thinking through from the perspective of, sometimes I would hear from families to say, why did my kid have to leave that school? Why don't you just make sure that you provide the very best at that school? And I'd be like, I can't do it. I wish I could.
So there are two issues here. You're naming two different things.
Probably.
One is the internal of the system in its ability to serve every kid. So that school serve every kid. That's one. Two, you're asking, how would your kid feel if they had to go to that school versus the neighborhood school? I want to answer the second question first.
Okay.
And I think this is where you and I think what has made us fast friends and so easy is that we have so much in common. My God, it's just like one thing after the other. This is over and over. So it's rare when I hear a clear difference, like a value difference. I was like, oh, that's so fascinating.
I don't know if I'm going to stop myself because I can feel myself reacting. So like to try to like put up guards, and that's not fair to you.
No,
So let me
no
stop.
guards. It's not a negative judgment. It's a difference between the way in which that question about why wouldn't your son, our Leo, feel this way? And the answer is maybe, but our family has a value that, and I've shared this earlier and how I was raised, that basically says your last name is more important than your first name.
Yes.
And so what that means is that he might push against it a little bit, but he knows that his brother's more important. And it's not to mean that he will diminish those relationships with his friends. He'll do his best to do that as well. But in this case, yes, we'll just stay together as a family. That's the most important thing. You've got to take care of your brother. You've got to be with your brother. And so that's why I would be, and on top of it, here's the benefit. The benefit is because his neighborhood school doesn't have any kids like Pablo in it, he would be immersed in a school with a ton of kids and thus normalize the experience of families and kids like Pablo. Right now, he's the only kid in his neighborhood with a brother like Pablo. Imagine flipping that.
This is marvelous. No.
Imagine.
Yeah, I guess I bristled at I don't know if it's a value statement, and then actually it is. It isn't.
I don't think it's wrong. I don't think I love that he goes to this neighborhood school.
No,
I love his neighborhood school.
Really, I mean, it is a value statement in that we were raised more in an individualistic, we don't live near my parents. We're all go out.
Everywhere.
Go conquer the world. And I admire so much the collective because the individual is actually kind of lonely.
I live with my mom.
I know. That's my point, is that it is a set of beliefs that you carry and you cherish. And it's not that you just live with your mom. You've just gone through a major remodeling to create a home where your mom also is valued as part of the collective. And the stories you've told from last season to this
Day
season
one.
in terms of why don't you live in LA? You don't live in LA because everybody came up.
My immediate family came, and everybody in LA is still, when are you coming back?
Exactly.
I'm 55.
Exactly. Amazing. This is probably one of my favorite conversations with you. Truly.
Oh my goodness, so crazy. I love the absurdity of it all. The second question the first question, what you asked first about the system being able to do that. Oh man.
I wish it could. I wish it could. It can't.
Is there ever a place? Has it ever? It makes me wonder. Did we ever interview
the problem is
it's
like,
able to do that?
so my experiences have been like, okay, so we train someone up, we get everything in place, and then the local hospital will pay you double the amount. Take that highly trained person and, give them free tuition at the local university. And so we lose them. And so then we're like, okay, we got to regroup. We have children with specific needs, and we've got now one teacher that can do that as opposed to the two that we were building. So the problem is that the system isn't confined and closed. It is so dynamic. And because of the country we live in and the market sort of economy or whatever you want to call it, it's that they can recruit away. And I think that's why ideally I'd love to see it work. It can't with the kind of way that we treat talent or that we compensate people. I don't know.
I guess I'll put it out to the listeners. Those of you that know a leader who is creating such a thing, I would be very interested to listen to that.
I would expand that to a community that has figured it out, because it's not just a leader. Because it could be like the two teachers you just mentioned at Wellspring. Is that what it's called, Wellspring?
Yeah.
That in this community in particular, there are all these teachers who have left the system and opened up shop and have connected their very specific programs within a community, in a neighborhood, to that school. So they're able to be integrated and do things together. And I mean, that would be great. That would be great. I mean, when I've had subsequent conversations with David K. Richards about the micro school movement and sort of my advice on, man, I think schools would be so excited, public schools, if they knew that you could provide something that they cannot do right now and that you did it together. Yeah. I think they'd do it in a heartbeat.
Before we close, and
please,
obviously we're running long, but before we close, I would like to mention, I'm going to say one thing, but I actually want to talk about the other thing. And the thing that I want to just say aloud is the concept of difference between stupidity and ignorance. And I only want to say it aloud because I thought that was exactly right. And this is why she opens with this. This podcast is perfect for me. But the thing that I want to end on.
But let me just define, just a reminder. So if you're driving, you're like, I think I heard that. Ignorance, not knowing, but willing to learn. Stupidity, knowing better, but not seeking assistance.
Yeah, she says, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
The issue comes if you know it's a problem and you don't seek out that training or the assistance you need.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to end on was the idea of bringing in someone from the outside, someone from the community, a specialist in the community, and have them become a teacher. And you said, so in Missouri, they could do it for 3 years. They would know their content, but do you know children? Do you know how not to take things personally? Because a kid is going to tell you things that you may not want to hear. And she said they do it with what they call their Option 6 program. This is my favorite story. And that she said, we had a gentleman who worked for a church, and he worked for us for about 10 to 12 weeks. He said to her, I'm going back to the church full time because I find it's easier to deal with sinners than my lack of preparedness. Oh my goodness. I loved this. Because it couches one of the things that I think is so true for us as educators, especially ed leaders, everybody in education and public ed. We are a calling and a profession. It is a profession. We study, we figure out, we learn about what child development looks like, and we apply that as it relates to learning concepts like literacy, mathematics, mathematical reasoning, et cetera, including social emotional learning and all the other things that go with it. The idea that someone who knows a lot of stuff about one thing could come in and just start doing it. Here's this pastor, and he's, yep, kind of hard.
In the words of the pastor, I would say, amen.
It's so hard.
Yes.
It's hard.
Having spent 18 years in Missouri, I so much when she was telling a story, I wanted to be like, bless his heart. Bless his heart.
I agree. Sinners are easier. It is a lot easier than assessing 180 students every single day to figure out where their misunderstandings are and how often those misunderstandings are not the same and they're all over the place. And your job is to get them to the same outcome.
I love it. And look, I know we got to end. So we didn't even get to talk about her after action review although I think she would say, yeah, but Peter, pretty easy to sum up. I mean, it would have been helpful if I'd gone to the school and talked to them about being a K8 before bringing the news to them that they were no longer going to be a K5. I will say that I am so actually, I'd say I'm thankful, and which is great because this is the week of Thanksgiving. And so I am thankful to her for her wisdom and for her time and for her many years of service to children in her community. And so I'll leave it there. I guess I would also say I'm thankful for you, Jamie. This has been another great episode, another great week, and it continues just to be the highlight of my week. So thank you.
I want to tell Terrie Morgan I'm thankful for her. She clearly was raised by the same parents that I was raised by, the same people that I was raised by. Her humility and her leadership is infectious. I'm all in.
You've been listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I'm Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm Jamie Almanzan.
We're thankful for you for tuning in each week. And don't forget, you can give us 5 stars. It'd be totally fine. Anyway, see you next week, Jamie.
See ya.
Music for An Imperfect Leader was written and arranged by Ian Varley. Sam Falbo created our artwork, a wood print inspired Daruma doll butterfly. Remember, imperfect leadership is not a scarlet letter. It's a badge of honor. It recognizes that serving as a lead learner is about being a vulnerable leader, an empathetic leader, a compassionate leader. We are proud to be imperfect leaders, so join us next time for another episode of An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast.